The hospital room was a stark canvas for a dying man's torment. Eddie Brock, once a titan of a man, now wasted away by the insidious grip of cancer, lay tethered to machines, but his true battle raged within his mind. The physical pain was relentless, a constant, gnawing presence, but it was the mental anguish that truly pushed him to the brink. The whispers had begun subtly, then grew into a roaring cacophony, taking the familiar, guttural shape of the Venom symbiote. Not physically present, but a phantom echo, a dark shadow of his past, twisting his thoughts, feeding his despair. He perceived it as a representation of his own dark side, amplified and relentless, a cruel companion in his final days. It taunted him with his past failures, his missed opportunities, and the irreversible damage he had done, both to himself and to others. One quiet afternoon, through the haze of medication and the relentless internal battle, Eddie's gaze drifted across the hallway. His eyes, though weary, sharpened on a familiar figure. It was Mary Jane Watson, her vibrant hair a stark contrast to the sterile hospital environment. She sat vigil beside a bed, her expression etched with a profound sadness. Following her gaze, Eddie saw her, Aunt May, frail and comatose, a fragile whisper of life in the quiet room. A strange, unsettling thought began to form in Eddie's mind, spurred by the relentless urgings of his internal tormentor. The phantom Venom's voice, a low rumble inside his skull, twisted his perception. "Look at them, Eddie," it hissed. "The last vestiges of innocence, a perfect canvas for your final masterpiece. Eliminate the witness, silence the quiet judgment, end her suffering, and yours." The insidious idea, born from his pain and the Venom's dark influence, was terrifying in its cold logic. His dark side persuaded him that one final decisive act could somehow bring a twisted form of peace, a brutal closure to his messy life. The next day, with a chilling resolve, Eddie used what little strength he had to contact someone outside, ordering a black suit. It was a symbolic gesture, a uniform for the grim task he felt compelled to perform, an embrace of the darkness that now defined his existence. He imagined it as a final, decisive act of control in a life that had spiraled so far beyond his grasp. As dusk settled, casting long shadows in the sterile corridors, Eddie slipped from his bed. Each step was an effort, his body screaming in protest, but his mind was fixed on the path ahead. The phantom symbiote coiled around him, whispering encouragement, painting a grotesque picture of liberation through violence. He knew what he was going to do. He was going to murder Aunt May. His destination was just down the hall, Aunt May's room. But as he approached, a nurse emerged, her gentle face clouded with concern. She was a young woman, perhaps new, with kind eyes and a soft smile. She murmured a question, her voice a soft disruption to his grim resolve. And in a terrifying flash, fueled by desperation and the raging darkness within, Eddie lashed out. A quick, brutal movement, a gasp, and she was gone. Crumpled on the floor, an innocent life extinguished in a heartbeat. There was no rage, no satisfaction, just a cold, terrifying emptiness that swallowed him whole. He slipped into Aunt May's room, the scent of antiseptic mingling with something far more profound. And then he saw her, Aunt May, frail, almost ethereal in her stillness, a woman who had never known a day of malice in her life. She was utterly helpless, innocent beyond measure, a beacon of pure, unwavering goodness in a world he had only known how to corrupt. A wave of nausea, cold and pure, washed over him. This wasn't power. This was depravity. This wasn't cleansing. This was unthinkable. The rage, the darkness, it suddenly felt hollow, replaced by a searing, undeniable shame. He had killed an innocent, unbidden, and for what? To harm another who was completely blameless? He found he simply couldn't murder someone so innocent, someone so devoid of any connection to his own bitter history. The weight of his actions, particularly the lifeless form of the nurse in the hallway, pressed down on him with crushing finality. At that moment, a chilling, absolute clarity descended upon him. He had done too many terrible things, been too much. The thought was a sudden, devastating realization. Redemption, he believed, was not possible. Forgiveness, even from himself, was a distant, unreachable shore. His hands, still trembling, found a discarded medical scalpel on the nearby tray. The razor-sharp edge gleamed under the dim hospital lights. He didn't hesitate. One swift, desperate cut across his wrist, then another. He closed his eyes, welcoming the cold, numbing release, believing this was the only escape left to him. Then, a blur of red and blue, a familiar, youthful voice, thick with concern. "Eddie, what are you doing?" Peter, the Spider-Man. Yes, but in that moment, just Peter. A hand, strong yet gentle, seized his wrists, applying immediate pressure to the wounds. Peter's face, usually masked by a cheerful quip, was etched with a raw, undeniable compassion. He wasn't Spider-Man the Avenger, he was Peter, the young man who had known Eddie in so many twisted iterations, yet still saw something worth saving. In the sterile quiet of that hospital room, the once mighty Venom, reduced to a desperate, dying man, found not a battle, but a rescue. Not a final act of villainy, but an unexpected moment of grace. It was a moment of profound vulnerability and despair for Eddie Brock, a man who had spent a lifetime wrestling with his inner demons, only to find salvation in the most unlikely and humane of hands. Peter Parker, a figure Eddie had so often considered his ultimate adversary, became his unexpected rescuer. A poignant reminder that even in the deepest pits of self-loathing, connection and compassion can break through. This tragic chapter in Eddie Brock's life serves as a stark exploration of the human capacity for both darkness and light. It's a powerful reminder that even in our most desperate moments, when we feel utterly consumed by our own perceived sins, there can be a flicker of light, and sometimes that light comes from the most unexpected places. What are your thoughts on Eddie's brutal struggle, his moment of terrible clarity, and Peter Parker's intervention? Share your perspectives in the comments below, and if this story resonated with you, consider subscribing or following for more deep dives into the unexpected corners of familiar tales.